Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Adam Strong here, host of The Business Strategist. First of all, I wanted to welcome some of our listeners here on the show. If you're new to the show and you're enjoying some of our episodes, please make sure that you hit that follow and subscribe button on whatever channel that you're listening to today. I want to also welcome back some of our followers and subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. We really greatly appreciate it. Now, I would really love it if I could have some more feedback from you guys. So if you could leave either a 1 or a 5-star review over on Apple or Spotify, I would love to hear from you guys, because without the show, we don't know how to improve, right? So do me a favor, go over there and head over and leave a review for me. Or alternatively, feel free to head over to YouTube, over onto the channel, and feel free to leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Anyway, hope you're rocking and rolling. Enjoy today's episode. Cheers now. What do the likes of Apple, Brewdog, Dollar Shave Club, Gymshark, and Monza Bank all have in common? They have created what I call the unreplicatable business model. Rather than trying to be what everyone else does in your industry, trying to beat your competitors at what they do, what if you could have a business that was uncopyable, right, for your industry, whatever it might be? Wouldn't that be interesting? Now, on today's show, we have my very good friend, Mr. Les Evans. Now, for context, me and Les have probably known each other for probably the best part of 10 years. And, I named Les probably about 3 years ago, and I called him the marketing disruptor because the way that he thinks, his personality, his character, and if you met Les, you'd understand what I'm talking about in terms of he's that type of person. And so for the past 20 years, he's been transforming misfits. He's been transforming mavericks. He's been transforming what I call the outsiders. And what's really interesting is that Les has brought out a new book that's going to be coming out here in the spring of 2026 called Uncopyable. Now, this is basically being able to take the ideology of engineering a category of one business. Now, we'll talk about this on the podcast and what a copy or category of one business actually is, which I've already mentioned a few, by the way. He doesn't just grow companies. I just wanted to say that, but he changes their DNA and builds businesses that just can't be duplicated. Imagine having that skill set. Imagine being able to have that same tool or same intellectual property that Les has in your own business. Now, wouldn't that be interesting? So, without further ado, Les, welcome to the show.
Woohoo! Ring the bells and blow the horns. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was awesome. Thank you.
No worries. All good. It's all good. It's it's really interesting. I mean, we probably speak every other day. First of all, I want to share my gratitude and appreciation for our friendship because, we've been friends for the best part of 10 years. And it's beautiful to see how, your transformation over the last 18 months, which we'll talk about during the show, and how that's kind of, I suppose, evolved you as an entrepreneur and as a founder. I don't know. Have you felt like an evolution over the last 18 months yourself?
Yeah, 100%. Just quickly, likewise, I'm equally grateful for the friendship. We have a no BS relationship. We can talk about anything. We're straight with each other, and we're not too tough on each other. We are, but in a very elegant way. Yeah, I've gone through an incredible metamorphosis at this time in my life, which was kind of started when my dad passed away a couple of years ago. Because when you lose a parent, of course, that always, I don't have to explain this to someone who's gone through it. You examine your own life and things come out that you didn't expect. But yeah, it was a friend of mine who asked me an interesting question a couple of years ago, a mutual friend, Rory, who once said to me, couple of years ago. He goes, Les, I think you're amazing at what you do, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how the hell you do it. And that kind of stuck in my head. And so about a year and a half ago, I decided to kind of, because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of businesses in 25 countries as a business coach and mentor. And I had no idea how I was doing. And that's what led me to this journey and eventually the book and the subsequent stuff we're going to talk about today. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm excited about your new book that's coming out, which again, we'll talk about, that journey, that life journey over the last 18 months. But I want to kind of start with a really interesting question, because you've worked with over 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs and founders, celebrities in 25 countries around the world. You do a lot of stuff on the speaking circuit, don't you? And you've even worked with companies like American Airlines and UBS, some of these big corporations. Now, from your perspective, what's the single biggest mistake that business owners make? And maybe they know, or maybe they don't know about it. What's your thoughts about this?
I just, because there's so many ways to answer that question, but off the top of my head, they've got nothing new to say. That's it.
Well, let that sink for a little bit. Just let that sink, because I absolutely would agree on that 100%.
Yeah, it's, as you know, competition, like today, let's face it, competition is greater than it's ever been before.
Yep.
And with the advent of AI, and we can dive down that wormhole, we've gone to industrial scale theft of each other's, intellectual property, particularly when it comes to marketing and things like that. And there are firms now who are openly like, this is a badge of honor. Hey, we are scraping the best ads out there. And, so what happens is, and I kind of had a joke. We joked about this the other day. I said, how are we supposed to compete? Alex Hormozy, had heard him on a podcast, I think, and he was saying, well, I put out 40 pieces of content a day. So what does that mean? I've got to put out 400 a day to compete? Shouting louder is not the solution here. Right. We have to have something different to say. The real reality of business, and this is the frightening thing that entrepreneurs have to get used to. When we start a business as a founder, this is our baby. We love it. It's our life. We pour our passion into it. We put a lot of hours in, a lot of sacrifice. You know what we're talking about. And unfortunately, to the general public, we think we are special, and we may be. We may be special, but to the general public, we're nothing but a bag of rice on the shelf. And the sad fact of life is there are over 40,000 varieties of rice, all shouting to be heard. You can't, that's a fact, by the way.
Wow, I did not know that, by the way.
So what are you going to say? Well, I'm wild rice. Well, I'm short grain rice. I'm instant grain rice. And it's just more of the same. And so many businesses, and I know this to be a fact because I've pressure tested this for the last 18 months.
Yep.
I believe nearly every business that exists out there has the ability to be in a league of their own if they would just stop trying to sound and look like everybody else.
It's really interesting. I agree with that. But then there's a thought that goes through my mind is, okay, well, do I want to piss someone off? Do I want to alienate someone? But then there's a lot of psychology in the mix, and you'll know this because, a lot of your research and a lot of your experience uses psychology, neuroscience, sales, marketing and stuff like that. And I think that it's not so simple and it's not so easy. In our conversations, you talk about the fact that people are lazy, which in a way I do agree, but I also feel like sometimes it's an educational issue or a knowledge gap. They don't know how to do something. Would you agree on that?
Well, you know what? That is a very apropos point. And I don't think that's the listening audience's fault or entrepreneurs for a lot. I really take umbrage with a lot of the guru industry, if you will. And I'll tell you why. Because I've seen this, and I see this on LinkedIn quite a bit. And again, I'm not throwing shade on people. We just do what we know, because if that's what you know, that's what you know. But what I see a lot of people go out, because we're trying to compete for the content and the attention and the likes and shares and all that stuff. But we end up like, here's 5 things to do for your business. Here's the 10 pillars. Here's 3 things, or this article came out, and everybody says, here's what to do. But what's missing is the how.
Yeah.
And the how is how they get paid a lot of money, because how is incredibly difficult. to address another point, to make a contrarian brand or a category of one. A category of one brand is simply a brand that's in a league unto itself, like Tiffany's, Rolls-Royce, Chanel, Virgin Airlines, okay? But here's the interesting thing. You don't have to piss somebody off. For example, I think I shared this with you. Sometimes all you need to do is make one single distinction, and quite often this distinction is something you as the founder have in you already. You just haven't had the right catalyst, like somebody like myself, who will come out and go, this is it. So I think I shared this with you, but like I said, I'd worked with a couple that did retail design in Kuala Lumpur, very nice couple in Malaysia, and they were doing well. But I said, what's your problem? I said, well, the problem is we have competition. I said, well, can you explain retail design to me? And I had an idea, but to be clear, it's people who are experts in making the interiors of stores look nice and navigatable in such a way that make you want to buy. I mean, it's just the science to it. And I said, okay. I looked at the website. It said retail design. And I said, we're going to change one word. I want you to insert the word profitable retail design. That's all I said. And within a year, they doubled their business. So
just from one word.
Yep. Put it on your website because that's the distinction thing. How many of you can, well, we create profitable retail design. So the challenge I have with every business person, I say, who else can say what you do? Who else can say what you say? Because if somebody else can say it the same way, we got to come up with another solution. So it's not about, I believe in doing two things, structurally changing the DNA of the business to improve it. Now, I know there's some experts out there saying, oh, don't waste your time innovating today. It's not worth it. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not worth it? Like, what kind of bonehead philosophy is that? Because that innovation might be the thing that differentiates you. So, like, if you look at Yeti coolers, the camping coolers from America, I mean, these were two brothers who got fed up with styrofoam coolers and cheap coolers busting apart. They not only fixed what's broken, and that's one way to differentiate, they built something that didn't exist, which is another one. And so Yeti is like the Chanel of camping equipment. I mean, people today, like a cooler is $500 here in Canada. You know,
crazy.
You won't be able to afford the beer to put into it afterwards. But those are some, so it's not as what I've done in the book is reverse engineered about 30 different ways that you can become uncopyable. Yeah. And these aren't based on me scraping the internet. This is 30 years of lived experience of how I did it, including in my own business.
Cool. Yeah. And we'll talk about those 30 laws, if you want to call it, or those 30 patterns that you discovered. We'll talk about those a little bit later on. So, interestingly enough, because I think that a lot of people, and you'll see this on LinkedIn, we've spoken about this offline. Most businesses think that they've got a leads problem, right? I've got a marketing problem, I've got a leads problem. I need more leads that come into the... but what you're saying is they have a nobody knows why they should choose me problem, right?
Quite often.
Quite often. And I think, which is really very much a direct challenge to all the marketing strategists out there, all the marketing agencies out there that claim to fame and say that we're going to do this and that and whatever it is. We need a funnel for this and we need a funnel for that. And well, I won't name names just for professionalism, of course. But like from your perspective, what do you mean by this? Like nobody know why they should choose you problem. Let's differentiate between those two distinctions.
Okay. Well, if you end up, as you know, I've spent the last 18 months, I've worked with 200 different businesses.
Right.
In the UK, funny enough, and I'm Canadian, but that's what we call the expert from afar, right? That's branding. Right. But if you ever want to see the deer in the headlights look from a founder, ask them one question: why should I do business from you? And they just go, they freeze. And then if they do respond, they'll typically come up with some kind of a platitude like, we give great service. And my response is, well, I should hope so. Okay. But then my next question is who else can say that? Thousands of people. if you tell me you've been in business since the days of Moses, or this, my favorite is, oh, we're a family business. I go, yeah, so is the mafia. It doesn't mean I want to do business with them. So they use these worn out platitudes. It's because they can't grasp the singular thing that makes them different.
Yes.
Now, I don't really have a beef with branding agencies except for this one thing. A lot of them talk about positioning, and you'll hear the odd one talk about category and say, okay, if you want to be a category business, one of the things you need to do is this or this or this. They'll say what to do. But when I go to their websites, and I have some seriously sophisticated analysis now, none of them know, they can't do what they're talking about. They can talk about positioning, but usually from a branding, they come at it from a decorative standpoint. They'll get the positioning sort of and some of the messaging there, but they're not really nailing the categories. Now, the first guy to talk about category one, I think, was Joe Calloway, if I'm not mistaken. And he wrote a book called Category One. And I think he had kind of 5 or 6 pillars, if you will, of a category business. And Yeti's a perfect example of a category. They're in a league unto their own. And again, it's not that difficult, but it just seems to have never been broken down until, pat myself on the back, I accidentally stumbled on the formula, and that's part of what we're talking about here today.
Right. It's really interesting because, well, not going against branding agencies, but just in general, and you'll see this. I've had lots of conversations with lots of business owners and founders. Now, most of them are credible at what they do. Like, they have authority. They've got awards coming out of their ass. They got testimonials. They got reviews. And I ran a workshop last week, and believe it or not, it was with a workshop of lawyers.
Okay. Wow. Sounds like a bundle of kittens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was a fun of joy. No, but, really nice people, in fairness. But, and I asked that kind of same question. I'm like, so why should people choose you? And you rightly pointed out, they all said, we're hardworking, but we're a tech firm. We only specialize in tech. And I'm like, and they really struggle to grasp what the different, and I tried to explain this, but maybe can give us a little bit of a context that I don't know if this is something that you've observed, but there's a lot of people that have the authority but lack the positioning. Yeah. What is it that we need to do to flip the script and kind of create? I mean, if we take, say, for example, a boring business, right? Like a law firm, right? An attorney or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And they really struggle. What are some of the things that you do, or one of the things that we could do as an exercise for our listeners? What can we do to, start working on that positioning rather than just keep working on authority? Most founders exit too late, not too early. They hit their number, then waste another 2 years second guessing it. Here's what keeps you stuck. You know what your business is worth, but you don't know what you're worth once you're out. Will the life you're picturing cost you 3, 5, or 8 million pounds? You probably have no idea. Now, our sponsors, Zentum, are financial planners who have built a tool for exactly this. It's called the Cash Out with Confidence Assessment Tool, and it shows you the real numbers, what your exit actually funds, and whether there's a gap to actually close. It takes less than 5 minutes, and you'll know if you can exit now or how much longer you need before you actually can. Go to cash-out-with-confidence.scoreup.com or check out the link in the show description notes below. Enjoy.
Yeah, that's a good question. And by the way, just to be fair to the many talented agencies and indeed the hardworking professionals you're talking about, like I respect business people. Building a business is not easy. And I'm not here to throw shade or put fault or blame. It really isn't their fault because, like I said, positioning is difficult. This stuff isn't easy. And as you know, when you're the founder, you're the fish in the bowl. Even it's hard for me to stand out for myself. So, guilty as charged. But there are several different things you can do. And let's take, my favorite is, I'll pick between dentists and lawyers, because let's face it, they're in a tough position socially. They're not really loved. Nobody really wants to go to the dentist or the lawyer because they're both painful and expensive. And
That's
you
true.
usually only have to go if you have to go, so to joke around. But if you look at some of the things that, for example, with dentists, one of the things, this is brilliant. In fact, perfect example, maybe, 5 kilometers from my house. I was driving on the highway and there's a big billboard and for a dentist office. Now we're in a new area where I live. I get in my mailbox 5 dental postcards a week. I swear from, this, we see, I guess everybody graduated at once or something. And they all say, family dental, we love children, as opposed to what? Like, what else,
That's creepy.
Yeah, and and we offer this and this, and it's all the same stuff. And you literally, because I'm not a dentist, my brother-in-law is, I can't tell one from the next. Sure. The one thing I do know is people fear going to the dentist, and they fear judgment. Because and we all do this. Tell me, you'd be a liar if you didn't say when you had to go to the dentist to get your teeth clean, the first thing you do is brush and floss, even though it's not going to do you any good.
That's true.
So this dental place said, so-and-so dental, no judgment. We welcome all smiles. Right there, you set yourself apart. That message right there, which is what I call a feel-seen equation. I've been hurt, felt, I can identify. You've just mirrored me. So I'm a big fan of identity mirroring. And the same, you just could say this, a lawyer could do the very same thing. No judgment. We welcome all challenges because people are incredibly intimidated to go to lawyers. First, they feel ashamed, and that's a real deep human emotion.
Yes.
And so another way of doing things, like particularly for a law firm, and I did this for a law firm once, they face the same thing. Law firms are really challenged because they have really difficult constraints in terms of promoting and what they can say and yada, yada. It's the legal profession. But I said, the challenge with a law firm, same thing. You can say you're the best. You can say you've been around for 130 years, etc. But the consumer does not know the difference. Now, if you educated the consumer, for example, and you said, hey, by the way, did you know if you're going to choose a lawyer, make sure they're schooled in the discipline you need, because there are over 60 different disciplines of law. So make sure you're using a real estate attorney for real estate and not a criminal attorney. I'm being a little silly here.
Yeah, I understand.
But that's and right away, if I read that, I go, well, I didn't know that. So if you can make a simple educational statement where the customer goes, I didn't know that. It's the old, teach me something I don't know. And it's so simple. Educational marketing doesn't have to be complex. It can be one little thing like that. Or here's another thing with lawyers. What's their typical caseload? Because the guy's got 50 cases and you're at the bottom of the totem pole, you're probably not going to get a lot of attention, and you're spending $300, $400, $500 an hour, right? So there's a couple ways of doing it. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's a couple.
Cool. I love that. So very good. I know a big thing about you, which is you've been in the coaching industry for a long time and you've worked alongside some of the big gurus out there. Now, again, I'm not going to name and shame people for professionalism, of course, but now really interesting. And I know this, something that it's kind of turned into a bee in your bonnet type of thing, and work, if you want to call it that. But, one of the things that you see a lot in the whole kind of what I call the guru side of stuff, of selling high ticket coaching, high ticket coaching methodologies or strategies or packages or whatever it is. Now, you've walked away from that industry after being in it for so long. What is it that you didn't like about it? And what did you see that made you leave from that? Because obviously you can make a lot of money from that. But now you've kind of, and again, without kind of naming names, what is it that really you didn't like about the industry? What is it that frustrated what is it that frustrated you the most? And what is it that you felt like, maybe I don't fit here anymore and I need to go and do my own thing?
It's a really, really good question. And it's simple. It's not the individuals, it's the model. The business model, which is based on continuance. We're not here to heal you. We're here to treat you, as they say. So I would find people come in and spend, and I've been to some of these high-end events.
Yeah.
I like to solve problems. Usually when people come to me, I'm the fixer. They've gone through everybody else and their problem is still not fixed.
Yes.
And I believe in solutions. So the coaching industry traditionally based on continuous. Now that's a business model. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of industries that run on, lawn maintenance is a continuous industry. You don't just cut it once and you're done. But the frustration I have is you have people coming in. I'm always very empathetic because I am an entrepreneur still.
Yes.
And I'm very sensitive that I'm spending a lot of money for you to solve a problem. And I come out with about 1/4 of it done. And, now we got to spend another 25,000.
Right.
I'm like, to me, I just find that disingenuous. Or promise this, but really deliver that. They're teaching a completely different skill. I was going to marketing events. And we had people, they want to learn about Facebook ad, marketing, the funnels and all that stuff. And, it's really easy to get excited about that stuff because there's a lot of shiny objects. But I'd back up and I'd say, well, listen, explain to me why before we put you on Facebook, tell me why I should buy from you. And that question was never getting answered at all the events I've been to. And I've done these high-end events all over the world. And the first place you should start with is, you don't even know who you are and what you can do for people. Tell me why I should buy from you. And if you can't answer that question, you're way too early for Facebook, in my opinion.
I agree.
So to me, it's the model.
Yeah, it's a really valid point there. And I'm glad you answered that question because I often find that a lot of these people that invest lots of money into, and listen, there's some good stuff out there, right? And I'm not saying that everything is shitty. But then, you do feel kind of a little bit sad, and because it's happened to me, it's happened to you where you've invested a lot of money into something that you think is going to fix a problem, but actually you end up being in a worse place than you did before and didn't solve anything, right? Because I'm not and again, I don't believe in the kind of one size fits all approach. Every business is different, right?
Yep.
And you can't say, well, this methodology is going to fix all these businesses because it's not true, right?
No.
It's, and I'm glad that we've kind of talked about this in a really authentic way. Switching conversations here, I know that from what we talked about earlier, which is over the last 18 months, you've been on your own personal journey and you've made some discoveries. You've seen some patterns, which involves things like neuroscience and psychology. Tell me about these pattern recognition, these pattern recognitions that you've seen over the last 18 months. And tell me about why is it that our listeners should really care about those pattern recognitions?
Sort of complicated, but not.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I'll try and dumb it down for myself. I was trying to explain things to myself like I'm 6 years old. But here's as I alluded to before, when my dad was in the process of dying and I was just going, if you've been through that before, when your parents are fading, you start grieving before they're even dead.
It's true. It's true.
But at any rate, going back to that Rory's question, so how the heck do you do what you do? I stumbled over a ChatGPT prompt, which was meant to create an ebook, just a simple series of prompt questions.
Okay.
And I had, me, I swore I would never write a book ever because I said there's too many damn books already and most of them are garbage. So with all due respect to the really good ones, because there are some fabulous ones. But I was like, I thought, well, how did so I picked a business that I'd worked on out of the many, and I started to write how I fixed it. Because I really had to think, okay, well, I did this and I did this and I did this and I wrote this out and I went, okay, well, it's kind of interesting. And I told it in narrative form because me, I'm a storyteller. And then I said, well, let's try another one. I'll try another one. I wrote another one and I was working with AI. Kind of as an editor. The AI wasn't writing for me, but I use it as a muse and a sparring partner. So I was fighting with it a lot, at any rate. But then it had pointed something out to me. It said, you have extraordinary pattern recognition, because the AI started asking me, well, where did the idea for that solution come from? And I said, well, I connected this thought to this thought. Long story short, that led me into tripping over. Now, I'd studied neuroscience during COVID, just for laughs, basically.
As you do.
'Cause, what do you do? And then I tripped over being, a neurodivergent. And I discovered at the age of 62 that I was neurodivergent. And a neurodivergent person is somebody who has certain deficiencies, but they have gifts to make up for them.
Okay.
So, for example, and it occurs in about 10 to 15% of the population. We literally think in opposites. We tend to think the complete opposite of the other 10 of neurotypicals, okay, which is why we end up as quite often written off as malign, misfits, mavericks, etc. I was the black sheep in my family, never knew why. But as I started to study the science behind it, and my sister-in-law is an occupational therapist, my sister is a therapist. She's got her degrees in psychology, and we discussed this. And so one of the things growing up, I had a really tough time in school. Well, it turns out I have an information processing problem that I had. So it's not that I can't understand stuff. It just gets stuck. So I have to, any of the information I look at, I have to re-explain it to myself in analogies and metaphors, and such that I can explain it to a child. Now, years later, that's a great gift to have if you're a coach, because you can take the most complicated stuff and say, oh, it just works like this, So that was one thing. The other thing I had was dyscalculia, which is a math disorder. It's almost like being dyslexic in math, which explains why I had to take grade 12 math 4 times to get a 70 and get my diploma. Now, think about the irony of that. But despite that disability, I was a CEO. I built $100 million niche investment fund. And I had no degree in finance. And frankly, I hate finance. But I was able to see patterns and gaps. One of the gifts of being neurodivergent in my case is extreme pattern recognition. I don't think linear thinking for me is very difficult to go like A, B, C, D, E, because my brain goes A, Z, Q, F. It thinks in quantum leaps, for lack of a better, and I'm not saying this to boast. It's just literally how I'm wired.
Sure.
So if I deal with left brain people, I really have to focus.
Fight with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, because I'm very creative, I zip and there is the answer kind of thing. But what I learned from that pattern recognition, working with the AI, it was asking me how I came up with this thing. And eventually the AI said, hey, do you realize what you're doing in your business? And I'm like, no. And it said, you're creating categories. And I was like, because I'm not formally trained. Okay. I am well studied. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have the jargon. I don't have the lexicon. And it said, you're creating businesses that are uncopyable. They can't be beat. And I went, well, okay, well, give me an example. And then it said, well, Rolls Royce. I go, okay, that's obvious. And then I'd like Harley Davidson, another, iconic. And then I threw up all these names. And I said, well, how rare is this? And they said, well, first of all, it usually takes companies millions of dollars and like a decade at least to create that formula or discover it. And it said, by fluke, 1 in 100,000. And it once in a lifetime kind of thing, these kind of stats. And it said, you've been doing this since you were 17 years old. You just didn't know it. And I went, okay, well, so I started to use the AI. Okay. And this is how these laws came about and the framework and this is through lived experience.
Yes.
See, I wasn't reverse engineering history. This is how I did things. I did this. And these stories are all told in the book. So the book is really the origin story for what I've created now is this uncopyable methodology where I can apply it to almost any business. I'm not going to say it'll work for every business, but to a greater or lesser degree, I can get probably 70 to 80% of the businesses much closer to category 1. And so about 30% of them can be genuine category 1 where you're untouchable. And that doesn't mean you're the best. It just means you have something unique. The question is really, Adam, it's how do I take a commodity and make it rare? And that's what this book tells you.
I love that. I want to come back to something which just sparked my imagination, but I want to test that theory in a second. But I know that you said there's 30 laws in the book that's coming out. Give us 2 or 3 laws that you think would maybe hit the hardest for some of our listeners who feels maybe, you know what, I'm good at what I do, but I'm invisible to the market. Are there any kind of laws that kind of relate to solving that problem?
Well, visibility is one thing, but starting structurally is another thing. And I'll give you an example. And I talk about this in the book. In fact, this is probably the first time I kind of discovered this. I started playing music professionally when I was 17 years old, and we were playing every single weekend. I was paid professionally. That's what I did on the weekends. Nice. But by the time I was 19, my brother and I were getting fed up with our older bandmates who just weren't up to snuff. And I said, you know what? I want to build the best band in the city, like the best. That was, I'm sick and tired of all this mediocrity. I want to build the best. And I said, okay, well, one problem is I'm not the best. I mean, I was a good drummer, still am to this day, good enough to get paid, but I was not great.
Right.
And good is the enemy of great, as they say.
That's true.
So I did a couple of things. The first thing I did was look around to the competition. Not that I was interested in competing, because I don't really believe in competing. Because that means I'm going to try and chase what you're doing and fight with that. I'm like, to hell with you. I'm going to raise the bar. I'm going to just create a whole new playing field. That's the way I think. So I looked at a couple of the really top bands in the city, and one of them had great stage show, great musicians, great lighting, great sound, like all the decoration. But they played songs that nobody wanted to hear. Like, duh. You're an entertainer. You're supposed to, Then I look at another band, and they were tremendous musicians, but you could go to sleep watching them, And so I said, so how do you define the best band? I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make the most entertaining band. This is one of the rules, is change the landscape. Instead of trying to become the best, why don't you redefine what best is? And I said, my version of best is I'm going to create the best, most entertaining band. And so we set about to do exactly that. I got some terrific musicians around me. I told them, here's my vision. And then what you do is you get the hell out of the way. And we had, 5-ton truck, 60 feet of light, 25,000 watts. And the funny thing is on our biggest gig in those days, and I was 19 years old at the time, we played a show for 2,500 people. And guess who was our opening act? The best band in the city.
My goodness me.
Yeah. So that's one thing there. It's just little things like that, is stop playing their game and create your own landscape. I said a few of those other before. If something's broken in your industry, fix it. How many times have you gone to a restaurant, not McDonald's, but it's a nice place, and you go there and you come out of there and you say, well, this is a wonderful evening, but you know what? If they just did this instead of that. How many times have you done that, whether it's a restaurant, a store, a gym, airline lounge?
1 million times.
Right. And see, here's the thing. The real question you should ask yourself is, what irritation are your customers quietly putting up with that if you fixed, you would be the hero? It doesn't have to be a major thing. Another big thing of mine is constraints. I love constraint. All my models were built on constraint because first of all, when I was young, I was broke. I didn't have any money. I had to find money to build this so-called band. Quite often I'd found in business people come to me because say, well, I want to grow and I'm, paid for all this coaching, but I don't have any money for marketing. Right. And I'm like, oh, great. So I would have to come up with creative ways to make that business different, get the message out differently. So create constraints, create cunning. And that's not a weakness. That's a strength. All my models are based on not spending a lot of money. It's about forcing yourself to think creatively about the problem. One of the other ones is right or wrong. Right or wrong. Pick something that just pisses you off and fix an injustice. That's how I built my investment business. I saw what the banks were doing to average people, and I said, this isn't right. And people are suffering financially, not so much from the banks, but because the bank's ignorance with people. I don't know if that makes any sense so far.
No, it does. I think from a founder's perspective, and certainly from a listener's perspective, I think one of the things is, why am I not doing those things? Would probably be, do I want to be disruptive? Do I want to be contrarian? Do I want to tell the truth, or whatever it is? Like, and again, I said this in a LinkedIn post actually a couple of months ago. The biggest fear that most people have is the fear of judgment, right? Being judged by other people.
Yep.
You said it. We've said it at the very beginning. But actually, I'm like, I have this kind of attitude where I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do it anyway. But then I get it. Like, there are professions that feel like, oh, but I'm going to get struck off by whatever association they belong to, or whatever it is. There's this kind of fear of, maybe I should do that type of thing. I don't want to be seen as, ruffling a few feathers, if you want to kind of call it that. But I do think that there is generally a big fear around that.
And you would be right. But as I've said, fortune favors the bold. I have
That's true.
Sitting actually right on my shelf back there. One of my friends, Steve, from the UK, was with Her Majesty's SAS. And he gave me a commemorative medal, which has their motto on it, which says, "Who dares wins."
Yes, I know that. Yes.
And I love that. I love that philosophy, because in business, you've got to have a sense of audacity. That's why we're in business in the first place.
That's true.
Just being an entrepreneur is an act of rebellion. So the cool thing is like, I talk about attack, like mocking my enemy. I don't have to denigrate another business, and I don't have to denigrate the profession.
No.
Without, there's a way to do this. And listen, I understand this singularly because you're in the UK, I'm Canadian. Canadians, I think what we have in common between the two countries is, first of all, Canada is one of the colonies, Well, we're polite to a fault, right?
Yes.
We don't
want to. By the way, we always apologize for everything we do, by the way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what we have in common. I've been to the UK many times, so I just fit right in, So, but there is a way to do that without diplomatically. There's always a way to put that diplomatically, but doing that, taking truth in business is really powerful. You can call out the BS in your industry and still do it in an elegant way, without saying, you're to blame and I'm going to name this guru and this guru and this guru. That's why I don't attack. Do I have problems with the guru industry? Yeah, but it's more the model.
Yes, I totally get that. Yeah.
And listen, everybody's trying to make a living.
Yes.
I'm not here to take away somebody's living. That's my personal beef with it.
No, I think you made a valid point. I think if you're still respectful, you're still professional in a way that comes across that it's you're authentic, it's your train of thought, then why not, type of analogy. So I think you make a very valid point. I want to go back to what we talked about earlier, and I want to test a little theory with you, if I may.
Okay.
Now, I want to take a boring business, right? Now, a boring business to me would be, say, an accountancy practice, right? Boring businesses, right? They could be a professional services, whatever it is, okay?
Okay.
Now, a boring business description, it could be their website, it could be, I don't know, a strap line, it could be a founder using something on their, I don't know, LinkedIn page, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how do I change? How does a listener that has a boring business right now, how is it that you can change something into what I call memorable or unforgettable?
I guess we're talking about what we spoke about earlier, was like having a good opener, right?
Yes.
Right. So the bane of every business person is the infernal 29-second elevator pitch.
Yes, which we will talk about later on, by the way.
Yeah.
Which I am looking forward to. But carry on.
Well, to me, again, the whole problem is It's the same thing over and over again, which is we don't know how to express ourselves. And again, not your fault, because there's very few people that wake up and, William Shakespeare, basically.
That's true.
So in business, we tend to copy what's safe. So we look around at what our competition is, like, what does so-and-so say? What's their pitch? Or what's so-and-so doing for their advertising, and so on and so forth. And so what happens is you end up sounding like everybody else, because nobody's thinking of anything originally, because I'm an accountant. What's original about that? Tax deductions, But a good example is give you sort of a simple illustration before we get into the openers, if you want to do that. For example, I put this challenge on Facebook. I said, give me your boring job description and we'll turn it into something memorable. And one fellow had written in, he says, I manufacture hair care products. And he sent me his ad. He put it's on my Facebook. He sent me his ad. And I believe that, and he said something about his belief in God and that hair was all the same and something like this.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to fix that. So, but true life, right?
Right.
So first of all, how many hair care brands do you think there are in the world?
Millions,
right?
Mind you, you're asking the wrong person. Come on.
Yeah, well, likewise, I don't have too much up here myself. But the thing is, the real question is, why would you get into a commodity-based business when there's tons of competition? And they'll say, well, because I believe I have a better product is usually the reason. Mine is all natural, right? These are the arguments you have. Mine is holistic. It's organic. It's certified, quantified, whatever. So he sends me his ad, and there's 4 bottles on here. And here's what it says. It just says the brand is, you know what? I won't see the brand. I don't.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay. So XYZ hair care, it says science-backed beautiful results. Who else can say that?
There's still brands that do say that, by the way.
Right. What the hell does that mean? Here's
science-backed.
Science-backed.
Does that mean that we've got some celebrity being paid $1 million to say that? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's giving me extra hair growth.
Look at this. Now it says clean, lightweight, color-safe formulas for every hair type. Okay. To me, first of all, that top line, anybody could say that, and thousands do. It's like it's just not even nothing. Clean and lightweight, yeah, so what? Color-safe formulas, yeah, women want to know that, or men too that dye their hair. For every hair type, well, you're not picking a niche. You're taking everybody. So we apply to everybody. So there's nothing defensible about that. But when I read further what he was saying in that little message about his God's unique hair and stuff.
Right.
Because I dug a little bit because I wanted to help this gentleman.
Yeah.
And I found all hair is the same. Fundamentally, chemically, it's all the same.
Uh-huh.
So, and when I dug, it's like basically, so I rewrote his ad for him. I haven't sent it to him.
Have you sent it to him, by the way, yet?
Not yet. No.
Oh, okay.
I messaged him this morning, but I'll see what so I redid the air, and my headline says this: hair is hair, the rest is marketing. The hair care industry has invented 47 hair care types to sell you 47 products. Your hair doesn't care. That's a position.
That's great. I love that.
And then the bottom says 4 color-safe products that do what 40 can't. Reverse chemical damage and protect against future damage. That's a position.
That's a positioning. Yeah.
You see what I mean? So, but how did I get that? I got that because he said one powerful thing. He was taking a personal belief, which, as far as I know, is accurate.
Yes.
He's saying, chemically speaking, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a biologist, but he's saying human hair is human hair.
That's true.
It is what it is. And so now he's saying something nobody else is saying. Right there. Boom. End of story.
Love that.
That's all it takes. Hair is hair. The rest is marketing.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's right there. People are going to, what? Because the whole point of conversations is to, stimulate curiosity. Say, what? Tell me more. What do you mean by that? Instead of saying, I've got 50, you have more bottles of shampoo than I have liquor in my liquor cabinet.
And for you guys that are bald like me, of course, this will probably not resonate with you. So I apologize.
Well, you're not part of the demographic.
Maybe I should create my own commercialized product for bald people.
There you go.
I know what it could be called. Spit and polish. There you go. That's a great positioning. I just came up with that, by the way. That's
really good. That's really good. Well, that's kind of another one of my laws, by the way, is to, one of the things I ask is ask yourself a question in your business. What's the stupidest thing I could think of? Or what is the silliest thing I could say about my business? And as a real exercise, and even if you're just goofing around with a beer on an afternoon or something at the pub, it can be a lot of fun because you may indeed come up with something that you just never imagined because it's a throwaway line. You're not under pressure. That's how I came up with my infamous bank robber line that I've told you about.
I love that. For you guys that are listening in, by the way, I hope that, first of all, I hope you're picking up some of the great conversations that me and Les are going through. To me, this is like a masterclass. And it's certainly a topic that we've never, ever covered in the 378 episodes that we've done so far. That's a lot of episodes. Right? So, and to test this, by the way, for you guys that might be flipping through all the episodes to see if there's anything, like I will tell you now, there's definitely nothing out there. Anyway, before we kind of move on, last question before we kind of move on to the coaching part of it, which is if there is a founder out there that's listening into this episode, right? They feel like they've done everything to try to grow, scale, or exit their business, but they also feel like they're the best known secret in their industry. What are some of the exercises that you would recommend someone to maybe try to change, whether it be a mindset shift that needs to happen, or is it about their demeanor, or is it about what they do on a day-to-day? Is there any sort of maybe 3 exercises that they could do to try and change that?
Well, I beg your pardon. The first thing you have to look at is I think is a mindset realization. And this is tough for us entrepreneurs. Again, going back to the fact we build what we build, we love what we do. And then we wake up one morning, we go, shit, you mean I have to sell this stuff? And, this is something my father said to me a long time ago. He goes, your primary job with your business is not your business. Your primary business is building your business and marketing your business.
Yeah.
So, if you're not, and these, I'm not a huge Alex Hormozy fan, but I think he's got a lot of wisdom for a lot of people.
Agreed.
Absolutely. He's got some real pearls there. And one of the things he said, which I agree. Now he works 12 hours a day. That's what he said. And he probably does. I mean,
but he doesn't have a kid either.
Yeah. Well, there is that, isn't there? No, the thing is, you don't need to work 12 hours a day necessarily, but he did say something important. He goes, 4 hours a day is self-promotion. And you think about that.
Interesting.
4 hours a day, because, we get so, the old expression, we work in our businesses, not on them. We get so ensconced in the minutia that we forget. And, guilty as charged. I have done that myself, but my excuse was I've always been in demand as a coach. I never really had to market. Now that I'm getting away from that, because I've, built a reputation and referrals, etc. But now that I'm getting away from that, nobody knows. There are thousands of people who know me worldwide, thousands, but there's millions who don't.
That's true. Millions,
hundreds of millions. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Having the book come out and the methodology that I've created, I am switching to marketing mode because I've spent 18 months of grueling work, not just writing the book, but creating these incredible frameworks and formulas, which I can't share because they are proprietary. Yep. They're exceedingly complicated, but the result that comes out of them is the simple part. That's what I love. You put in this really hard work. So the first thing is get your mindset around my primary job has got to be promoting myself.
Yep.
And we have to deal with that internal fear of self-promotion. And again, that's not our fault. Because back in the Stone Age, to make yourself stand out was frankly dangerous if there was a Bengal tiger hanging out. You know what I mean? And this is a cultural thing, by the way. I write about this in the book. I mean, you used to live in Stockholm, if I'm not.
You're right. You are true. That is correct.
They have a cultural thing there called Jantelagen, which is Jantelagen, is it? Sorry, I apologize. Which is like, don't stand out. You're no better than anybody else. And it's not singular to Scandinavia. This is like in Australia, it's tall poppy syndrome. every culture. And so
true.
you think about how many millions of people's dreams have been crushed because it's like, well, don't stand out. And I'm guilty as charged. We had this same
Absolutely.
agreement.
Belief system. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there is a genuine fear, and it's real, but it's not reality either.
That's
so
true.
we can work with that fear of being seen, so to speak. But the second thing in that thing of trying to stand out is not looking outside, but looking internal. This is what it literally, in a sea of sameness with AI, the thing that wins more than ever is human creativity and human originality. I know it sounds like a cliche, you are the one and only you, but it is true.
Yeah.
So the very quirks, and I tell people, I've learned to lean into my quirks and my so-called flaws, because that's usually where your gifts are and your differentiators.
That's true.
My pattern recognition is genetic. Nobody can copy it. So the way I see the world is uncopyable.
Yep.
And what I've done is taken my way of thinking and put it into formulas now. And good luck trying to reverse engineer it, because you'd have to dissect my brain. Let's not go there. I don't know. Hopefully that helps.
That's for another episode, by the way. So I love that. Some really, really good stuff. Now, what I want to do just towards the end now, I want to go into coaching mode if I could, because one of the things that we love to do on this, and this is something that I know that we've had you on before, but this is something completely unique, by the way, where we have our guests do coaching, they coach me, right? So for you guys, I want you to imagine, right? You've got your notebook and pen handy anyway, but I want you to imagine that Les is sitting with you in the same room and you have a very similar question. I want to I want to not set a scenario, but I want to share a problem with Les, and I'm going to see how well that he can help me overcome that problem. So one of the big things that I really struggle with, Les, is the 29-second pitch, right? So we call this the social pitch, right? And one of the things that fucking drive me crazy is, people telling you about what you should cover and what you should do and stuff like that. But I feel like, and I certainly think that a lot of listeners here really find it very difficult to articulate what they are about, what their value is, without using generic terms, without using, should we say, and I want to walk away. I want to leave a conversation with somebody which is going to create, wow, like I want to create a conversation that's further. But what I'm finding right now is I'm finding that people are just not getting what I'm about. So maybe you could help me with that. What do you reckon?
Sure. I'm all ears.
So my 29-second pitch, Les, is, so for you guys that follow me a lot on LinkedIn, I now work a lot with legal M&A lawyers, so M&A attorneys, and their big problem is the lack of deal flow that comes through, right? So my opening line is always, well, I help M&A legal firms increase their deal flow. And then it will go silent. Now, normally what would happen generally would be as, well, how do you do that? Or whatever it is. But then, some people just don't get it. So I don't know, you've been in conversations like this in networking situations, whether it be online, offline, whatever it might be. I'm an accountant, or I'm an IFA, and I do this and I do that. And it's like, it's a real struggle there. And I feel like we really need to change the way that we just need to change the rhetorical, if that makes sense. So if you could help me with that, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, let's back up a second and look at what we're trying to do in terms of human communication. We just meet somebody the first time, and that can be at a cocktail party, networking, barbecue, because it always comes up. And the thing is, like, all of those events can be opportunities for us to promote ourselves, but there's two things we got to get around is one, like, not sounding like a jerk that I'm trying to promote myself at the family barbecue, which is, some etiquette there. And the other thing too is, like, how do I make myself interesting? But it's part of the social discourse. The problem I have with the 29-second pitch is like trying to marry the girl before even meeting her.
That's true. Yeah.
Like we're skipping a step. And I learned something years ago when I did direct sales door to door. I used to sell really expensive pots and pans in my 20s. And my mentor was incredibly wise man. And he said, when you go to the door, what's your job? And he said, to sell pots and pans. This is 25-year-old me. And he goes, no, that's not your job. Your job is to get in the door. That's it. And I went, okay. And then when I'm in the door, what's your job? Once I'm in the door, what's your job? My job is to sell pots and pans. No, your job is to take the next step to book an appointment.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So now when you're at the appointment, because we did dinner demos, you cook and demonstrate. And so that's another story. But he said, what's your job at the demo? To sell cookware. I go, no. He says, no. He goes, your job is to do such a good job that other people want to get a demo. Get referrals first.
That's true.
And right. So, I mean, such a simple thing, but there's incredible wisdom. And I said, well, when do I sell the pots and pans? He goes, you don't. People buy. And I went, wow. Okay. So I had to understand first things, first step at a time. What we're trying to do in networking, or even because there's so many opportunities that are lost that when somebody asks us for a living, well, I sell cars for Sherwood GMC. Great. Well, you're dead. Used car salesman? No, I'll talk to you. So what we're trying to do is open with some humor, create some curiosity, and then create the next step where they go, well, tell me more. I'd love to know more. So I ran into this problem myself, and we discussed. Do you mind if I share that really quick, the bank robbery?
Of course. Please do. Please do.
So like a lot of you folks out there listening, I had the same problem you did. I built a very niche investment fund in alternative investments, foreign currency pairs, and commodities trading. So if I go to a networking event, which I did, and I had to do some really high-level ones with high-level planners. The trouble when you're networking with financial planners who have like 15 characters behind their name because they've got so many credentials, you spend 15 minutes listening to their CV before you know what I'm
annoying,
right?
Absolutely.
And so you have no chance whatsoever. So I was like, I got to find a way, because if I said, well, I'm the chairman and chief executive officer of a privately managed foreign exchange and commodities trading, specializing in, privately managed accounts and not accredited, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. Yeah. So one night when I was coming back from a trip, I was in a bar with my partner. We were having a nightcap. It sounds like a joke, 3 lawyers in a bar, but there were 3 lawyers coincidentally sitting adjacent to us.
Okay.
And we were just joking around because we were so tired from traveling. And one gal spoke up. She goes, what do you guys do anyways? Like, you came from Panama? Like, and we did. We flew up from Panama to Miami.
Sounds dodgy already, by the way, Panama.
Well, right? And truth be told, I was 1 martini deep. So I was, pretty in good spirits, so to speak. And she said, what do you do for a living? I said, we rob banks. We're bank robbers. Just like that, spontaneously. And she burst out laughing. She goes, you rob bank. How do you do that? And I said, we steal their customers. And she goes, really? Well, how do you do that? And I said, have you looked at your bank account lately? They pay you 2%, right? And what do you pay on your credit cards? 24? You get 2 and they get 24? What if I flip that around and you get 24 instead? She goes, where do I sign? And that moment of humor took me years to figure out what the heck I'd done there. And there is a formula to that, by the way. There's an actual equation, if this, then that equation, if you've never done math and calculus, which I sucked at, but I'm pretty good at psychology. So this year I decided, I had people ask me, well, how can I get one of those bank robber lines? You know? And so what I did is it took me several days, but I figured it out and I created an equation, pretty complicated, and I can take almost any profession and turn it into a humorous opener like that. Would you like to know what yours is?
I'm curious now. Yeah. Or should I be scared?
No, I think the whole plan of this is to have fun.
Absolutely. 100%.
So,
okay, let's go.
This is not as simple as a simple GPT prompt because it's proprietary, but I tell you what.
Yep. So
here's the challenge, okay? If I look at your business, what is your technical business role? Well, you said, I increase deal flow for struggling M&A lawyers, right? Okay. Yep. The boring version of that is I help mergers and acquisitions, or we say murders and executions. Attorneys get more clients and close more deals.
Yes.
A little more expansion. Fine. Who I serve? Lawyers whose pipeline is dried up. Correct?
Fine.
So now what is the industry injustice and frustration. Remember, I always talked about fixing something, righting a wrong. What is the frustration customers are having? Do you remember me saying that in our discussion today? Okay, because this is part of the formula.
Okay, so the thing that came to my mind was they come too late. That's what really pisses them off.
Right. Okay. So here's just the general one, but here, if we look at it, so here's the industry injustice and frustration.
Okay.
The brilliant legal minds who spend a decade mastering billion-dollar transactions, but nobody teaches them how to get the next one, right? So what's happening is they lose work to louder, flashier firms with worse track records. True or not true? How many times have you guys in the audience there, how many times have somebody got the business and you knew, bar none, you were better? But see, it's not about being better. It's about being different. Different is being better than the best. It's great if you're the best, but if you're the best kept secret in the world, it doesn't help. So if you have a unique saying, instead of stumbling with marbles in your mouth at the company picnic, you have something original to say. So the way I look at things, so there's a few different ways you can say it. So I have a few variations. So here's number one. This is my outlaw version, Adam, if you want to use it. And they're meant to be humorous and sarcastic. Somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? I ambulance chase for corporate lawyers.
Ambulance chase?
Yeah, I chase ambulances, except I'm chasing the deals they keep walking past.
I love it.
The other one, here's another one. You can, and the key, like what my system does is it comes up with about 15 variations.
Yep.
Which I send to a client. And the secret to this is not me or how these are written, because this is written in my style. They're meant to be disruptive.
Yep.
But when you look at the sheet of the phrases that have been created, and they're all custom made for you, they're none of them the same. When you read the one that gives you the belly laugh, that's the one. It's simply, this is not something you think about. It's you read it and you go, oh my God, that's hilarious.
I just want to quickly share a train of thought with you. Actually, it was last week. I was speaking to a lawyer, and he was like, "You know what really pisses me off, Adam?" I said, "What's that?" He goes, "We were in conversations with a founder, and he was saying, you know, he loved what we did, and you know, he could see the differentiating factor and that kind of stuff." He said, "But it wasn't my decision. The board decided that they wanted to go with the traditional firm." He said, but they're shit. They're terrible. Like but it's because they're traditional. They've been in business for so long, but the board went with them. I couldn't change their mind. He was so frustrated. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah. Well, that's a very common cognitive fallacy called sunk cost fallacy, which means we'll stick to our original decision, as pathetic as it was, because we don't want to have to admit shame. It's an inner shame issue. We don't want the devil we know is better than the one we don't.
And they charge 5 times more money. How crazy was that? It's crazy.
Oh yeah. No, it's very much a primal brain response, because people there's nothing worse than having to say, I'm wrong and I screwed up. So even though they're costing us money, and even though it doesn't work, I'll stay with that, because we have a proclivity to stay with the decision once we've made it. It's just, there are ways around that. But there's some other funny ones here. You can say there's another one here. I'm a dating app for corporations.
A dating app?
Yeah. I set up billion-dollar dates, and my clients just officiate the marriage. So there's a whole bunch of them. And the thing is, it just depends on, like, these all coming from a different angle. Like you can say very simple, well, I teach lawyers to sell. I mean, they hate every minute of it, but then their business triples.
Interesting.
See? Now you say that, that one resonated with you in particular. And again, it's the one that resonates with you personally. If it's making you laugh, or you go, hey.
It's kind of creating curiosity rather than a kind of entertainment.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's a little bit of both, because each one is designed a little bit differently. There's 5 different emotional angles I used to mix them up. That's why it's so important that when you look at these, is the one that catches your ear is the one that's going to work, because if it resonates with you, it's going to resonate with somebody else.
Right.
And again, the key here is once they go, yeah, I teach lawyers to sell. I mean, they fucking hate it, but then their business triples. And you go, whoa, what did you say? Yeah, they hate my guts, but they sure like their paychecks. And then right away, that conversation is, well, holy shit, tell me more. And that's all you're looking for. You're just looking for that opening where they're saying, hey, I want to listen. Or this is funny. I like this one. I state the obvious to expensive people.
I state the obvious to expensive people.
Yeah. And they're going like, what do you mean? Well, because your deal flow dried up because you stopped working on it, you idiot. I always like mine when somebody said, well, you're a coach. I go, no, I just get paid a shitload of money to tell you what you already know. That's not
I love that.
But the whole point of an opener like that is, and at one of those networking events I was at, again, the same one with the 15 letters behind their credentials.
Yep.
I was sponsoring the cocktail hour, which cost me a few grand. There's 150 of the most powerful high net worth advisors because it's a family office symposium. And I finally got so fed up with listening to their sales pitches. I took my business card and I just interrupted. I said, guys, sorry to interrupt. Hi, I'm Les. I'm the guy buying your drinks tonight. Hi, I'm Les. I'm the guy buying your drinks tonight. And I had a 15-minute keynote the next day at lunch when nobody listens. But when I got up, everybody laid their tables and forks down and they paid attention for 15 minutes. I said, guys, remember me? You're the guy who bought the drinks.
Exactly. Love that.
And that's all it takes.
Beautiful.
That's being disruptive in a playful way. I think sometimes we forget to be playful in business.
Yeah. Especially when you're dealing with professional services companies in particular, is that everything has to be so tight and, you know what I mean? It's cliche and clinical. It's like, just want to kind of shake people by the fucking neck and wake people up. And it's like, why do you have to take life so seriously, guys?
Well, and you can, but just, sometimes just saying simple little things. I used to say in the investment business, particularly, and this wasn't humorous.
No.
But if I wanted to get somebody's attention, I would say, Albert Einstein once said that the thinking that caused the problem can't be the thinking that's going to solve the problem. So what you have to realize is the very skills and all the attributes you have and all the knowledge that got you here today are now the golden handcuffs that will prevent you from moving into the future unless we open those babies up.
Yeah.
And that's just a simple little statement, but that's a lot better than, hi, I'm Les. I'm an international coach. I've worked in 80 cities in 25 countries, from the smallest to the top of the food chain with 3 billionaires and blah, blah, which is all true, by the way, but it sounds just like
boring. Yeah, totally get it. Absolutely. Very good. So listen, I know that we're coming towards the end of our conversation, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, but just to wrap up today, because we've gone through a massive masterclass, not just about the book and what you discovered and the patterns, but is there any final thoughts for some of our listeners today?
I would encapsulate it in a phrase that I wrote in the book, and that's, don't be the echo, be the original. Don't be afraid to be the thing you're looking for. The differentiating factor is you. You just have to, instead of leaning away from it, lean into it.
Yeah.
Flaws and all. Seriously.
Love that.
Because my book, the entire book, Uncopyable, is really about being yourself in such a way that nobody else can copy because they can't. And it's reframing what you think are deficiencies into strengths. I mean, the man who's known for this work is Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. His biggest discovery was reframing meaning. And, if you really want to know the secret to being uncopyable, it's bringing meaning to commodity. That's all it is. I love to use, it's too far out of my reach, but I think I showed you one day, Liquid Death, sparkling water.
Yep.
Which is, for those of you, if you don't know, I'm sure everybody has sparkling water. It's, you get Perrier or what have you. In Canada, we have a brand called Bubbly. It's very inexpensive. It's in a can. It's like 50 cents. But Liquid Death is from America, and their can of cherry sparkling water is 7 times the price.
Wow!
And it's if you've ever seen Liquid Death, it looks like an alcohol can. And it really twists your head when you go to drink it because you're expecting alcohol. It's like, what the hell is this? It's cherry soda, But their whole strategy was very simple. They made a mockery of the snobbery of the whole bottled water industry.
That's very interesting.
I have to admit, years ago, the very first time I tried bottled water, I was in a high-end restaurant in Las Vegas. And this is when my investment business just started taking off. So I wanted to, go to a great steakhouse. Would you like some bottled water, sir? And I'm like, they had Voss water. You know the brand? I'm not sure.
Voss, yeah. Voss,
okay.
yeah.
And I thought, wow, that looks good. Yes, I'll have that, please. I had no clue. I just, I didn't want to look like some Canadian rube that, didn't want to drink the crap from the tap, so to speak. So I thought Voss, and I thought the branding was fantastic. But in the end, it cost me $8 and still tasted like water. But that's my point. Nothing has any meaning until you attach meaning to it. Liquid Death, their brand is all about mockery and having fun. You want to see, that is a category of one company across the board. Their marketing is utterly hilarious. And they just, even the name Liquid Death is a mockery of alcohol because that is technically what alcohol is, liquid death.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's what I would say. Don't be the echo. Don't be so fast to try and copy. Why not be the original?
Love that.
Originals are priceless. Copies are worthless.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, listen, guys, this has been a very, very deep and insightful conversation. Well, it certainly has been for me. I hope it has been for you guys. And I think this is probably one of our longest ever episodes, by the way. But I feel like we've not only covered a lot of ground, I feel like what Les has given you guys is just a real masterclass about how you can be a little bit different, and I can really resonate with what he is saying because it's very difficult to be able to stand out from what you do generally, right? And I think that if you can create something which is unreplicatable, uncopyable, if you can do that, then that's really going to give you an edge over the market. So anyway, Les, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you today.
My pleasure.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to ask you, so your book comes out, spring of 26, is that right?
It should be out in March, and it's going to be on print and demand. So I think just about anywhere in the world, it'll be available.
Very good.
And I'll probably put it on Amazon, but the thing that bugs me about Amazon is they're a hassle and they don't pay very much. Whereas if I do it this way, I can learn, I have no illusions about trying to make a fortune on the book.
No,
but
fine.
I can tell you that what you've read in there, you have probably never read anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because it's based on, 40 years of lived experience. And that's the difference here. I talk about 3 case studies like Liquid Death, for example, big brands. Yeah. But all the other case studies are businesses just like yours, mom and pop businesses. To some are bigger, like billion-dollar investment firm. But these are all real-life case studies where I found, through the founder's truth, as I like to say, how to make their business different. That's why I'm saying if it works for them, and I've done this over and over and over again, it's all there. The clues are in the book. I didn't put my secret formulas in the book, you can appreciate. But if anyone is intrepid enough, you can find 1 or 2 things there where you're going to go, I can do that. And the reason I say that is I'm a mailman who built $100 million fund. If I can do it, you can do it.
For you guys that are interested in a copy of Les's book that comes out very shortly, depending on when you're listening to this, of course, please head over to his website. I believe that Les is also going to be creating a landing page where you can get early access to a copy of the book because it isn't going to be available on regular distribution channels initially. So it's going to be for you guys on a first come, first serve basis, I believe, from what Les has told me. So looking forward to that. Anyway, Les, thank you so much again. Hope you guys have been, I hope you've enjoyed. And from me and Les, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you again on The Business Strategist. Take care and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers.